Hey guys, what's going on, everybody? And Brandon's getting his stuff together.
Hey, hey, we made
What's
it.
up? Made it.
Nice. All right, we're live. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks everybody for being patient. We had a little technical difficulty glitch there. I don't. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I can see some comments. Um, so you've got myself, Brandon Hudson, and Dr. Ben Higgins, both from KiS Organics. And we are subbing in for Tad and Chad today. And so hopefully we'll get some good questions. But unfortunately, I've got lots of stuff to talk about today if we don't. So let me ask Ben what he's got going on before I launch into my doomsday.
uh, Let me think. So far, so good. I think I got I had that one plant in there, Brandon, that was a little crispy.
Yep.
I think it was just because it was in the middle and I had the wrong fan placement, so it was getting hit a lot. So I moved the fan a little bit. We'll see how she does. Um, but everything else in the bed wasn't nearly as crispy on the tips. So I'm thinking that's it, because otherwise I would expect to see similar ailments in the other plants in the bed. So
Okay.
um would give that one a go. Made some notes. Used some microbial mass for the last time today, and we're gonna turn on some UVA lights and see how that does for the last 3 weeks. And I saw some interesting research that said getting those on a half an hour before and after your main grow lights come on will help with terpene expression, mold spores, and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I got them
So
set to turn on
is it are you starting that at a particular week? And can you just
seven.
say, let's say that, can you say that again just for folks? Because that,
Yeah, so
that
I've got two light bars. They're only about this big per 4x4 of UVA light that have, I think, three different diodes on them for different UV spectrum. And I'm turning those on tonight, but they don't turn on until tomorrow morning. But the research that I've been reading has said that a lot of help with like mold spores, terpene expression, and kind of more just overall senescence is having those UVA lights turn on a half an hour before your grow lights, and then stay on a half an hour longer after they're gone or they're off. Um, and
so are you
so yeah,
shortening the cycle a little bit so that they can kind of
no, I'm just expanding the outer edges of when the UVAs are on. So like I have my lights come on at 7 a.m. So I'll have the UVAs come on at 6:30 and then turn off at 7:30 with the grow lights turning off at 7.
all right, I'll be interested to see if that does
See what it
anything.
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna take a couple of better, closer photos before my lights turn off tonight, just so I can see. I don't have a direct control because I don't have the space to run the same bed without the UVA, but I know what this flower looks like without it pretty well.
Right.
So
Right. That's always nice. That's
yeah.
always really important to know the cultivar. Well, that's
Hmm.
cool, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. What do you got going on?
um, yeah. So I've got I told on myself. I think most folks have heard it because I've had a lot of well wishing coming my way. But I broke my protocols. My Anybody that knows me well knows I'm beyond uptight. I'm an asshole about IPM, and I'm like my mom's not allowed in my room. Nobody is, and I'm super uptight. I spray twice a week. I do all these biologicals and all this stuff, and I broke my protocols to take in some cuts, and I have root aphids. So the thing that I think really I got lucky about is that I do use EpiShield twice a week. as a foliar. And so um, also I just noticed that, my plants, as soon as I transplanted, I'm used to them taking off and they just stalled. And then I was getting purpling and mottling and all this weird stuff. Um, Luckily caught it before the crawler flyer stage. I pulled a plant, when VPD's right, PAR's right, fertility's right. When you do your checklist and everything in your right room is right, and your plants are not behaving as you would hope, um, it's time to check the roots. So I pulled a plant, started poking around, and sure enough, this thing that looked like a speck of pepper, I saw it move, and I grabbed it, threw it in my hand. I'm old. I can't see anything without my glasses, and even with those, I can't see something that small. I took a picture, blew it up. Sure enough, little fat potato, 6 legs, cornicles, root aphids. And I'm not going to act like I didn't just go sit down for a minute and just want to cry because of
Hmm.
the some of the genetics that are in that room have taken me 40 years to get, and lots of money, and I pay to play. I don't ask for favors. um, Man, heart wrenching, gut wrenching, but I'm a professional cultivator, and so I pulled myself up by my ass and got to it. And so
Well,
I
and I want to just chime in too, if I can, Brandon. And
yeah.
like, I think what I what I really want to highlight and call out and give you some flowers for is when shit goes wrong, a lot of people like to keep that stuff to themselves. And in reality, that's when people can learn the most, right? Nice, dude. And so I just think it's really commendable that I can shoot. We know plenty of growers that when stuff goes bad, they go underground, right? Because they don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't want to be looked at as whatever and this and that. And I get it to a certain extent if you're a commercial farm and you don't want to you don't want the word getting out that you're dirty or what have you. But especially for just folks like you or other people who are growing at home, I just think that's awesome, man. I think it's really cool that you were open about it. And your problems, I tell this to my kids all the time, right? A smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from the mistakes of others, right? So I think that's awesome, man. Just sharing the wisdom even when it's bad news. So kudos to you, dude. That's cool.
I appreciate that, man. That's really kind of what I'm after, is that, I see all these newer growers that are really hard on themselves, and honestly, they're doing really well. And so I think it's good to remind people that somebody with 4 decades in, still going to have some L's, can still screw up, and can be wrong. And so, it's just, it's a good lesson, and it's a good reminder, negative reinforcement for positive reinforcement, to not break my protocols again. But yeah, I think it's important. Like, this is cultivation. There's people
Yeah.
and there's plants grow by the inch and die by the yard, and people are about the dumbest animal on this planet. And so if you put them together, you're going to have some L's from time to time. And
Yeah.
and so I thought it would be worthwhile. I'm seeing plenty of comments about aphids, and other folks dealing with them. And I've talked to a couple of
Yeah.
friends who currently have root aphids or have had them multiple times. And um, so I've got some pointers or some products, some stuff that I think that folks might want to hear about. So I can jump into that real quickly, and then we can start fielding some questions. Number one, don't take in cuts. If you do, quarantine them, and quarantine them for 3 months, 6 months. Get a good, hop latent negative test. I broke my rules because the company I got these from is so high profile. I figured that in 2025 they'd be concerned about their reputation and would not be sending root aphids out to folks. But it's 100% my fault. I'm not. The reason I'm not naming that company
Hmm.
is because it's my fault. I'm the person who. It's my grow. I know the risks. I took the risk. And so, like, it's like God's not going to come down and spank
Hmm.
you for playing in traffic. But if you get hit by a car, you can't complain too much, you know? And so that's what I did. I broke my rules. So quarantine, quarantine, quarantine. Um, that's the most important thing, you know, and I really like that 3 minimum, 6 optimally, 6 month hop latent negative tests as well. So
Hmm.
just important things to keep in mind. Um, my immediate response was to do some things that I normally would never do. I don't use pyrethrins or pyrethroids. Pyrethrin, I think most folks know, is an insecticide um, that we get from chrysanthemum flowers. It's something that we've, you know, my grandmother used it. We've been using it for a really long time. Um,
Hmm.
it's a natural insecticide. Pyrethroids are the synthesized alternative, and they are more stable, more resilient in UV light and that kind of stuff. And so um, there's it's something that's fairly safe, and we've been doing it for a really long time. But I don't like to use it. I don't like to spray anything. I don't like anything that will be systemic. Um,
Hmm.
things like that. So, but this is you know, aphids, one, they can reproduce asexually, and for the most part they do until populations get extremely high. Um, they're born pregnant with viable babies, and so that's kind of like a all hands on deck kind of response is needed. So the first thing I did was set off a pyrethrin bomb. Pyrethrins, they interfere with the central nervous system. There's a voltage gate for the sodium path that pyrethrin just literally opens that up wide open, and so there's this hyper excitation of the nervous system. That's why you see them, you know, cockroaches doing that spasm thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so you know, and I just saw a comment over here. Hope it wasn't the sours. I got those too. I do want to say, because I did just give Gabby from Staten Island a review. It was not from Gabby. I know who I got them from, and it wasn't from Gabby. His plants came in clean, and they are in a separate space, and they're still doing fine. So I want to, you know, if I can clarify stuff, I want to. I just don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, so and so screwed me, because I screwed myself. You know, we're all adults here. You know, um, but so I'd set off that pyrethrin bomb. I also got some pyganic. It's also pyrethrin. Um, 2 days later, I did a Lao guard, more my speed sort of stuff, and this is still kind of nasty, gnarly stuff for me. I'd kind of like to stay in the Bavaria range, but Lao guard, um, formerly Met 52, is Metarhizium. It's a really potent fungus, and so far, you know, these are all, they have to come in contact with the insect, but this is a really neat fungus that will um, sporulate. It'll pierce the exoskeleton, sporulate in the insect, use up all its nutrients and fluids to reproduce, and then it ruptures, and then you'll see these little white fuzzy dead bugs if you look closely. And so then I can't remember if it's Metarhizium. There is one fungus that incites a weird necrophiliac response to where the insects try to mate with the dead one, and so they pass the spores around more aggressively, which is really interesting. But so I did that day two. 2 days later, I did an Azagard, which is Azadirachtin. Most folks are familiar with that from the neem tree, another contact killer. Um, and so I'm, you know, trying to, you know, do all these different things. I've had folks recommend some systemics like imidacloprid. I'm just going to get these plants healthy enough and clean enough that I can clone out of them. I am getting rid of my soil in my beds, which is a real bummer. Um,
Hmm.
I have ways to treat that soil, but considering the value of those plants, both financially and 100% emotionally, um, I don't care about the soil. I've got a very small R&D room. I'm just going to switch it out. I will
Yeah.
probably grow in pots for a little while, um, just because that'll make that easier for me to do soaks. You know, it's got to come in contact or it's not effective, and so you can hit. You know, if you've got 2 million root aphids and you kill all but one, you're going to
Hmm.
have a root aphid infestation next week. And so, you know,
And
you've
it's
got
right. And it's like if it's in one pot, assume it's in all pots. If it's in one bed, assume it's in all beds. You just can't. You just gotta treat it like the whole animal's sick. You know.
I'm treating my houseplants that were never any. That one got me. Um, that were never in contact with those plants, like never came near them. But I'm taking the nuclear route. So I'm treating my house plants. I'm treating everything just to get on top of this and get past it. And so rather than try to limp through a round or anything like that, I'm just pulling the hard emergency brake, doing a hard reset, and then I will continue to treat them as though I do have root aphids for at least 6 months. And this is overkill. And this is where we need Tad here to be like, well, that's a little too much, Brandon. But um, yeah. So accidents happen. Um, I'm
It
not mad
happens.
at anybody but myself. And so yeah, there's all kinds of ways you can heat treat. You can do all these things. Cold treatments aren't particularly effective, um, but so far I've had a bomb with pyrethrin. I've had metarhizium. I've had azadirachtin. I have also done 2 applications with Principal, which is a newer strain of Bovaria. Um, it's all
Yeah.
just kind of hands on deck, and then I won't and one of the reasons I'm not concerned about really going hard on these is I'm going to probably clone these 4 generations before I start to work with them again. One, just to make sure they're
Right.
clean, and two, that way there's nothing residual on my plants, because I do take my health and the health of the people I work with real seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so I've also got some SF nematodes. Obviously, the pyrethroids will kill those. Um, the azadirachtin, the Azagard will also kill nematodes. So I'm going to use nematodes in spaces like, a house plant in my
Hmm.
kid's room, places where I'm just doing biology. I'm not doing any, pesticides at all. So, yeah, so that's where I'm at with the
Nice,
root
man.
aphids, and yeah, left foot, right foot. Eventually, you'll get out of the crap, and
That's it.
I'll have
And
a bunch
goes
of.
and slow, right? That's the other thing too, is don't rush to the next stage of the treatment. Let the mode of action take its course. Let it work. It's one of those things where it's like smooth is slow and slow is fast, or you know what I mean? Like one of those kind of like, don't
Fast is
rush the
slow, slow is
process,
fast. Yeah, you
that
got
kind
it.
of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Let it happen.
and you want to do test sprays. You want to do test applications. Like, you don't want to fry, a valuable plant. You want to try this on, some plants that And so that's the other thing, is I got rid of a lot of genetics. I probably got rid of like 50 cultivars that a bunch of my friends are already heartbroken about, but it's not the stuff I like to smoke. And so, I know I talked to you and Tad. You guys were sending me well wishes, and I was saying that it was kind of nice because it kind of forced me to get rid of the stuff I don't like to smoke, because I love sours and chems, and
Yeah.
that's the stuff I want. And and then I've got all those packs that Green Bodie laced me up with. John was super kind and hit me up with a bunch of those kind of terps. And so I just want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to preserve all the genetics that's near and dear to my hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can jump down. to the bottom of this thread. There's a lot of comments today, which is
Let's
awesome.
do it.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. The first one that I see is Dumbs at Van an Ass. I feel like an ass trying to say that. Question: no bullshitting or hyping your homies. What's the best cultivar you've grown this year, Ben? So that would probably
Best.
be your What's your favorite from this year? And
Hooah.
include gold leaf in that because you're gold
Okay.
leaf,
Okay.
not just home.
We, man, what have I really dug? I mean, there's always animal sherbet, which is just always great, but like kind of fun and new. We started an orange, yeah, I guess orange poison. We started an orange poison run that was phenomenal. So that was awesome.
That's awesome. Nice.
Yeah, that was
I've
great.
been real stoked. I've got a buddy, Craig, in San Diego, who I met through KiS, who sent me a sour gas and a OG, some two crosses last year. And honestly, the first time I ran them, some sort of operator error. I just did not get the lip smacking terps off of him, and I almost let
Hmm.
him go. But he was so stoked on them that I was like, maybe I did something wrong. And so the next round I did was absolute fire. Just blew me away. And so I'm super glad that I've got those. Um, what else has been really, I got a triangle kush from a friend this year that is just, it's like you got a can of lemon pledge and a rag of gasoline, and it's just heaven for me as far as the terp profile.
Awesome.
I just, I mean, I wish I could wash my hair with this stuff. It's the best terps ever. And then I did a big run of different sours. The homie Adam in New York sent me the OG, the Not So Dog, Francis's Sour Diesel, Gabby's Sour Diesel. And then I got Gabby's box set. And I haven't floured the box set yet, but I did flour all of the sour diesels that I had. I've got the Wing Wing now. I didn't flour that one last time, but um, of the stuff that I had, the Gabby Staten Island was the most reminiscent of the sour I remember. Um, Man, I don't know. I love it all. Yeah, I could go on and on about the stuff that I really really
Yeah.
like, but just off the top of my head, oh, I gotta say, the sweet cheeses um, from Crockett. That's been a big like circle favorite. Like folks in my circle that I share with and smoke with and stuff. Everybody seems to really like that one. I really do. Um, the Nutter Butter from Humboldt um, has been a real pleasant
Hmm.
cultivar to have. It gets me high. It gets me really high, which you know, um, I'm an expensive weed date, man. Like you don't want to ask me out on a weed date. It'll break your pockets. Like I love to smoke, and I like to smoke a lot, and I like to smoke strong cannabis. It's one of my favorite things to do, and because of that, a lot of times I'm just shopping for terps, but this one really gets me high. I like it, and good attitude change, and it's a really terpy
Yeah.
cut. So that's another nice one. And man, I could just go on and on and on. But let's get back into some of these questions. Let's see. Okay, so a lot of folks saying hi. Cannabis. Hear me out. The best way. This is for you, Ben. The best way to use UVA is for plant morphology.
Yeah.
Use it as soon as you flip the flower, up to 2 to 3 weeks. When stretch is done, this will keep the plant short and dense, better yields.
Yeah. So it's all swirling around in UV. There's UVA, UVB, UVC. Everything is, yes, correct. Bluish slid to the spectrum. You're starting to get into the purples and things like that. UVB is a lot more detrimental to plant tissues. So that's one that you don't want to run the whole time. What the UVA does is again, I'm still just learning and scratching surface here, but it helps deal with the way the cells understand that if they're receiving plenty of UVA light, they don't feel like they need to reach for anything else. There's plenty of light there. So that's an indicator to the plants that, oh, well, if I'm getting plenty of light, then it's time to just go, horizontally or obviously flip to flower. Now, there's a lot more vagueness surrounding which terpenes or which cannabinoids, which secondary metabolites, UVAs. And again, and this is something that we can talk about and maybe touch on later once we grind through some of these questions, is the genetic impact of what you're growing in itself has such an insane level of control over how what works for me for UVA will completely wreck Brandon's crop, or any one of these things counts for that. Irrigation, lighting, VPD, CO2, all of that. So I think, yeah, I want to get through some of these questions, but if there's time at the end, I think it's a really interesting discussion because, we all like to look for these generalist sort of like magic wand, chisel it in stone dogmas around growing certain things, but there's just so much morphological, genetic, and phenotypic variability in this plant that you can really do harm by thinking one general application to one thing will work for everybody anywhere.
Yeah, I'm still in the Bugby camp because he's way smarter than me. That I can't win that arm wrestling contest at all. When it comes to light, um, it's total photons that's the most important driver. And then kind of like we look at fertility, and once your macros are full, then we'll look at your
Right,
micro. So
right,
like
right.
I kind of think that's the way to look at it. You want total par, but then total photons. And then once you've got a photon level that is sufficient to give you the growth that you want, then to start playing with spectrum. And I'm just kind of saying this out loud, and obviously Tad's not held to this at all. This is just me wishing, if I could put a wish out there. And I know that Tad knows him, and so maybe we could get this to happen. But I would love to get Michael Wolf Siegel, Farmer in the Sky from Sensimilla Tips, who hopefully
Hmm.
everybody here knows. If not, go look him up. He's a huge part of not just cannabis history, but specifically Washington history. Justin McGill, who I know is out riding a bicycle and not listening to this, lives up in Bellingham, and that's where Wolf is from. But Wolf knows more about lights than anybody I've ever listened to, and like just I I feel like somebody dosed me when he's done talking about lights. It's just mind blowing, and he's been playing with spectrum. I mean, if folks don't know Sensimilla Tips, that was a cannabis cultivation underground magazine, um, back in the started in the, I guess, early 70s, and ran through the 80s and up until the early 90s, until the Green Merchant bust probably. But then Wolf was Farmer in the Sky. There were a couple of people who wrote under that name, but he was the primary one. But that magazine was really the first place that anybody talked about how to grow indoors with lights. And so these guys are huge in our indoor cultivation history. And I'd love to get him on here sometime to talk lights, because man,
Hmm. Hmm.
he knows his stuff. Um, Cannabis came back in with another good comment on that same topic. UVA is the strongest blue light possible. Blue light shorter plants. UVA increases overall yield if you properly because of the inverse square law, since we're growing indoors. I agree. Um, let's see here. Jeff has aphids at the moment. It's been going on for a month or more. I'm sorry, bro. I feel your pain. Um, Shield has been really, really, really effective for me. I'm a self-oiled junkie. I love that stuff, and I still think it's pretty effective as a knockdown in the veg. I always tank mix Bovaria, whether I'm using Epishield or Suff Oil X. I will tank mix Bovaria. And I think I saw it up here someplace. Somebody mentioned that Bovaria and Botanigard WP is not particularly effective on root aphids. It's been used for that for a long time, and it does have a impact. But the um, the principle is definitely supposed to be more effective. I'm just saying that as not being an entomologist. I'm a fertility guy, but that's the literature that I've been reading. So I'm excited to have that in my rotation. Um, so yeah, Jeff, shoot me an email if you need the name of any of the products or any application rates, that kind of stuff. Silent Truth, yeah, frickin' aphids. Aphids suck. I don't know why that's not a T-shirt in the weed scene. So yeah, if you make one, let me get a free one. But yeah, somebody will buy those. I'd buy those. Um, let's see here. Simple intro. Chilbert says introduce digital aphid ID scheme. We've got one here now. Everyone wants to leave. Um, I don't know what that means. Sorry. Uh, let's see. Little shy. Jim Trim says little shy on my nitrogen for sativa stretch. Now demand is down in week 5. It's a lot better. Yeah. So most folks, regardless of the phenotype or the morphology of the plant, most folks will see your nitrogen and your water, frankly, all your fertility really ramp up once you flip. You've kind of gotten to a nice level at veg. And then when you flip, all of a sudden, those first 3 weeks, that plant just eats. It drinks and it eats. So, sometimes, that's a good time around day 21 to do a little, nitrogen top dress or something. If you're seeing an early fade, definitely do that. Let's see. Steve the fuck. Is there a trend towards tissue culture in Canada for commercial and home growers, or is this just my algorithm? I have lots of stuff to say about that, but I've already had lots of stuff to say already. Do you want to throw in
What
anything
was
on?
it? Sorry, that cut out a little bit. Which one?
There, Steve is asking, is there a trend towards tissue culture in cannabis for home growers and facilities, or is that just their algorithm? Um, there is a trend. There's already certain, like if you're a berry farmer in the United States, you can't get a loan or insurance for your farm unless your berries came from tissue culture. The bank's not
Right.
going to take a risk on potentially infected farm that fails. Um, I think for cannabis growers, the ability to store limitless, almost infinite cultivars in a shoebox size area is very attractive. I think being able to, it's limited the success that I've seen as far as meristematic tissue culture of getting away from viruses and that kind of stuff, but it does work. Um, so there is a move towards it. I know that Staten Island Gabby works with a guy named Jesse who does. They're getting ready to release a home kit, and they kind of they talk a lot about how you can kind of get started on the cheap for that. There's a YouTube channel I watch called Plants in Jars, and I think that she does a really excellent job of kind of demystifying um, tissue culture and showing folks that it's pretty easy to do at home. And so
Yeah,
I'm
and I
definitely
think
gonna I'm gonna set up a little tissue culture
cool.
setup and start doing it at home.
And
And
I think what we're also just seeing too is just kind of the natural progression through different topics as the hobby industry, whatever you want to call it, evolved, right? Like you always go through these bouts where everything's like, oh, everything's about the white ash thing, for example, right? Like everyone was talking about that for a couple of months or a year or whatever it might be. And then it goes away, or people figure stuff out and it's like, oh, this or that. But Yeah, I think it's just kind of the natural progression of, you know, as people learn more and want to get more involved. I can say from a commercial standpoint, it's super nice because, well, you don't need a bedroom if you've got a lab taking care of your tissue culture, right? You have them house your genetics and then send you what you want when you want them,
They'd be
and then
protected from root aphids.
be protected from root aphids or careless employees. We've had those too, right? So yeah, but it does make sense from a definitely from a commercial standpoint because you know, whatever your canopy is, X percentage of that needs to be applied to veg. But if you've got, you know, a lab or a partner that can hold those genetics, you know, in stasis in library off-site cleanly, then whatever canopy you had to devote for veg or moms is now back to flowers. So that's a whole nother, you know, 3 to 4 harvests per year, which can make or break an entire facility.
Yeah. I also think in that same vein of what you're saying, it's also a move in commercial cannabis towards a more professional space, a more professional
Yeah.
industry in terms of,
Yeah.
there's a lot, the majority of folks that got into cannabis don't have a real strong ag background. They don't come from commercial floriculture. And so things that, you know, have been happening in other areas of cultivation and agriculture, you know, cannabis is kind of like, oh shit, we're supposed to do that. we, we're supposed to have a pesticide license. We're supposed to, check out,
Yeah.
we're supposed to, there's a registry for what's legal and ethical for us to use in our state, so like part of that's catching up on our part,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's part of it, but yeah, I do think that it's something that's coming, for sure. And just like, if we do get federal decriminalization or some sort of structure, we can grow this across all 50 states. Um, I do think that you may be seeing some of those same requirements that we see already in other areas of ag where it's required. Like if you want to have a nursery, they may require you to grow from tissue culture just so that you can
Yeah.
maintain a clean space, you know. So, okay, that horse is beat. Um, had cut from USA arrive with aphids. What the fuck? Yeah, man. Like, I've had several folks send me bugs, and luckily, every time before this one, I've followed a very strict protocol, and I've caught it before it was allowed to go anywhere near my room. And so, always quarantine. I've had people send me russets. What, 1, 2, 3 times? I've had people send me spider mites like I can't even count. Um, that was like, like the ick that we used to pass around on tour, like spider mites. We passed that around the same way. It was horrible. Let's see, Monty Zoomer, interplant with French marigolds to bring in insects and leave roots in soil to kill bad things. That's a good holistic strategy. Um, let's see. They were free, very expensive because of aphids. Yep. No fly works well too. I don't know what's in no fly. I think that might be Mike. What is it, Mike Culprit? Um, um Maya Culprit. I always say that wrong, but that's if that's the case, just be careful with that one. But yeah, my apologies. I don't know what's in that one. Um, Silent Truth says the aphids were really bad there. Yeah, mark those on your calendar. Anytime you
Hmm.
get bugs, have a bug calendar. The almanac is not nearly as reliable as it was when I was a kid, but it's still, keeping a calendar for emergence when you start to see pest pressure will keep you from, wasting money. Like you don't want to put out BTI and there's no caterpillars around, so like that way you spend money and resourcefully. But it's really, it gives you a leg up if you can, apply your biology or your beneficial insects a week before you expect to see aphids hit your outdoor or your greenhouse. um, let's see. That's the thing. Monty Zoomer is talking about worm bin. That's the thing with soil. I have a worm bin, but
Mhm.
dare not use the castings because it's full of lots of bugs too. You want to talk about that?
Bugs are
I
good.
yeah, I see springtails,
Yeah,
uh, which are really, unless it's super wet, don't become a problem. Same thing with fungus gnats. I see a lot of people like in like threads and forums and stuff.
yeah,
Uh, and I've never with KiS. Nobody's ever, brought it to my attention. But people complaining about, oh, I got soil from so and so, and it had fungus gnats. What the hell's wrong with them? And nothing. It's organic matter, and that's literally where fungus gnats go to eat. And so, all organic, including KiS, we all have fungus gnats if we're wet.
yeah.
There's
And
really
so
easy ways to take care of it. But I just want to
I'm
let
happy to
everybody
chat for about this too because I might catch a little bit of heat on this one, but
go for it, please.
bugs are good for a plant. They are. I mean, there are certain bugs that are bad, obviously, like
Root
the ones
aphids.
everybody knows about. The root aphids, Brandon knows. Spiders, your broads, your russets, thrips, even to a certain extent. Like it's always so. The point I'm trying to make is those. I don't know. Think of it like whack-a-mole, I guess, right? Like something's going to pop up through those holes, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen, especially if you're dealing with living soil, organic production. Now, if you're not, then yeah, if you see a bug, it's a bad sign. You're not purposefully introducing biology into your system, so it shouldn't be in there. But for those of us that are using biology to not only grow our plants, to quite literally help us grow our plants, bugs are a part of the system. And the reason I say that bugs are good is, well, what are trichomes? Plant defense mechanism, right? Um, and so that's kind of exactly what bugs can help facilitate is, it's the same thing you hear about why people like to not only just use fans on their plants for air circulation, but you want a little bit of sway because it stiffens them up, right? Like you want these plants to have to be resilient, robust, and strong. And if they're not having to deal with anything, then there's no reason for a plant to invest energy into creating a defense mechanism if it doesn't ever feel an attack. It's not just going to do it for fun. It's going to do it based on just development, sure. But if there's a big, you know, problem, then it's gonna fight that. And funny enough, that's what we're looking for. The thing that the plant is going to use to fight to protect its inflorescence, its flower, its next generation is what we're trying to boost. So in organic production, I like seeing fungus gnats to a certain extent. I mean, I don't want to open the tent or open the room and get blotted out, by by a horde of them. But if I see bugs flying around, I got an ecosystem in there and I know that. And what I also know is if whatever niche, and what a niche is think of it like the whack-a-mole holes, right? Every one of those holes in a whack-a-mole board, you can label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever to 10. Let's say the fungus gnats are holding up or are taking up hole 6. If they weren't there, that leaves that hole open for something else to come through there that may be more detrimental to your plant or your environment, right? Or the rest of the ecosystem around it. So the point I'm really trying to make is having predators, having bugs in your system means that it's going to be a lot harder for bad things, really bad things, to come in and compete with them because there's already something there. And so when you hear about these massive, massive outbreaks, they're usually in very sterile rooms. Why? Because there's nothing there for them to compete with. It's like lighting a match in a hay barn, right? But it just goes. There's nothing to stop it. Whereas if you can think of having more bugs in there as like little pockets of water, I guess, to help that fire from spreading, it at least slows it down. So My whole thing is I like seeing bugs. I like seeing things crawling around. If I see a big old spider in my tent, I leave him there. He's eating stuff that, it's part of the process. And it's a much more robust way for these plants to deal with stress and a much more natural way of doing it. And for those of us that are really trying to live in taking what's natural and boosting it to the max and controlling that in some sort of, you know, manageable chaos, if such a thing exists, then it's great. And it's awesome. I'll see a couple of thrips and I don't pull my hair out even because I know that that's not the one that's going to take me down. I'll deal with it, but I'm not going to turn the room to 110 degrees and freak out.
All right. I'm way more uptight. but I
There you go.
but I agree. I know exactly what you're saying. Um, I I'd prefer to get. I like the eradication route, which is not what the professionals. Suzanne says economic threshold, and that's the right way to deal with it.
Right, right,
But I'm all about scorched earth. But there are a lot of bugs that I don't worry about.
right.
Fungus gnats, springtails, thrips are at the very bottom of my list. As far as something that can, I could see in a facility because thrips can move pathogens around. That would be a concern.
Hmm.
But with, I don't worry about, like I used to, there's good bugs in your soil. I used to see
Yeah, 100%.
Hypoapsis miles. That's what Stratiolaelaps now. I used to see those in Oli compost all the time, and I've gotten those in
Right.
kits. You know, and so learning to ID bugs is a really hard thing to do, and it's a lot of fun.
Man, is it
I
worth
would,
your time though?
yeah,
Whew.
and it'll save you some heart attacks too when you, what in the world is this? Is this going to take me out tonight, or can I sleep?
Am
Can
I
I sleep?
good?
Can I
Right.
sleep good?
I think the one last point too, Brandon, that you touched on about aphids spreading disease, that's one that scares me more than bugs. You got your hops latent, and I mean that those are silent, those are facility killers, much more so than any bug is. Because a bug you can see and you have a plan of attack. When it's inside the plant and it's the silent killer and it limps your plant along and it gives you just enough hope to think that you can work out the rest of the round, um, and then come by the time you're already invested, you've got the inputs invested, your energy bill, all of that, and then it crashes, that's when you're really in trouble. So yeah, definitely from a vector standpoint, you want to keep bug loads lower, but I think non-existent, like Brandon said, and especially in organic production is almost a fool's errand.
Yep, yep. And moving on, I'm seeing some conversation about pyrethrins, pyrethroids, permethrin. Permethrin is what they use it to kill and drive mosquitoes away. So it's like in the mosquito sprays and stuff. You don't want permethrin um, in you or on you. That's you know um, that's nasty stuff. Yeah, stay away from that stuff. Um, so back to Monty Zoomer's question or comment. That's the thing with soil. I have worm bin, but dare not use the castings because it's full of lots of bugs. If I am controlling the inputs for my worm bin, and I know I'm doing clean sources with regard to bad actors like sodium chlorides and heavy metals, there's no pesticides, um, and I am thermally composting that before I bring it in. Um, at that point it would be sterile. There wouldn't be bugs. So if you just wanted the fertility side of it, you could do that. But to get the biological side, you can't do any kind of thermal composting. And so that's where being able to ID bugs, because I've never seen a worm bin that wasn't just
Crawling.
stocked full of beneficial mites. Like everyone I've ever seen is crawling with beneficial mites. So you might have a good thing there. So just,
Right.
not saying risk it. The guy with root aphids is not saying risk it. at all. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Silent One Truth. That's who said the comment about the Bovaria earlier. That's correct. Um, T-Man, question. Have you guys ever used wicking mats? And if so, got any tips or advice? Currently using the Blue Mat Aqua Mat with a surface sensor. Ben?
I have not used them, and I have heard people like them, and I've heard people have issues with them. The only time I've encountered anybody wanting to use them is for veg. I can see how something like grassroots bottomless fabric pot would make sense. Um, for that kind of application. The thing that I get worried about, and I've had other growers have problems with, is you're essentially inviting a standing moisture bed into your room. And for home, that can be challenging. And for commercial, that can be very expensive because you're going to be running your HVAC systems quite heavily to deal with that extra moisture load that you're wanting to now keep into your room.
It's like a mini
Um,
wet wall in your room.
Yeah, exactly, right. So there are benefits, but there are certainly some severe challenges that can arise pretty quickly. And so because of that, and because it's water, and Brandon will, speak to this better than I can when we come back with a soil test and we're dealing with heavy metals 9 out of 10 times. What is it, Brandon?
Water.
The bloody water. So if we've got that just sitting there, and if God knows what container, is it metal? Is it, who knows what people are doing? So when they say, can I use a mat? And I just say, sure, without knowing literally every detail of what they're going to be doing, which takes a lot of time, and is tough. I don't want to say yes because I could be steering them into a brick wall, just for not knowing fully what their system is. So, especially for veg, given that it's the beginning of the rest of its life, I'm always a little bit more cautious, especially around watering and VPD and all that kind of stuff, which a wet table makes a little bit more challenging to control.
I was going to say the only place I've seen them used, and it was used very effectively, was for very, just potted into like 4 inch up to 1 gallons in greenhouses. Um, I wouldn't want that kind of water in a flower room that's begging for trouble. Um, but I could see where you could make your watering, semi automate your irrigation for the most part, and that could be a real effective way. And I've seen people do that. And so, and in a greenhouse that was hot, they were able to, move a lot of air with big fans so they could evacuate that moisture. Um, Seemed to work pretty good.
Cool.
Uh, Island Genetics, Corey, what's up, buddy? Um, Puff Magic Grandpa, you want to get rid of anything? I'll give it a good home. Fair enough. Um, yeah, I've had a bunch of people offer to come take infected plants off my hands, and I can't do it. I'll get you one when they're clean. I just can't do it. I just don't want to be part of passing it around.
Yeah.
Um, Let's see. Silent Truth, Velifer, made by BASF with strain PPRI 5339, is supposedly superior to other Bovaria bassiana strains for aphids. Okay, Velifer. Um, that's a product I'm aware of. I've never used it. I know lots of folks that do. So that's great to hear. Thank you. Um, we're not looking for people to, do product endorsements or anything. But if you have, really good results from using something, we love to hear that. If you've had really bad results, we'd like to hear that too. Just, you can save somebody some heartache. Um, Earlithy. So the Gabby SI cut is your fave. Not So and AJ are both available at Archive PDX. Was thinking about them. Um, so I've got several of these sours from different sources and with really good provenance. So a friend from New York State sent me the Gabby, the Not So, the OG, and I got from Gabby. I got his box set, which has the Gabby the Not So, the AJ, the OG, and the original. Um, so I've got a bunch of those to run against each other. Um, but I've just thrown out a huge anchor on myself with these root aphids, so I'm just going to be behind on doing this head to head. But I've gotten, I've got the Wing Wang, I've got the 96, I've got the Albany cut, I've got everybody's sour cut now at this point. So knock on rocks, I can get past these root aphids and I can do a true head to head and see not just what I think, but get the homies together and see what Ben
Hmm.
see what Ben thinks is the best one too. Um,
Can't wait.
Jim Trim, yeah, I can't either, dude. Um, Jim Trim, yeah, I'm growing up indica next to a sativa for the first time. Tell me about it, brother. I think that's in reference to the morphology. Um, Wolf is Island Genetics is asking if Wolf is from Western Washington. He's from he's from the Bellingham area. Um, yeah, that's McGill's stomping grounds. Um, let's see. Jeff says I had the Sensimilla technique back in the '80s. Um, Nice. So I'm assuming Sensimilla technique, you're just referring to growing, Sensimilla is Spanish for, sin without semilla seed. It's just Spanish for without seed. Um, and so that's what 90% of us do most of the time. I like to do seed runs from time to time. Um, but yeah, the Sensimilla, that was something that when you hear early growers like Wolf talk about doing guerrilla growing, they weren't going back and checking on those plants until harvest time in a lot of cases, and so some were males, some were females, and so you know it wasn't until really for me, it wasn't until I'd say mid 80s that we started just doing females, you know. Um, Up until then, everything was seeded, you know. And I have friends that get furious if you don't have seeds in your weed. They want seeded weed because they want seeds. But
Party favors.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, nobody wants to smoke seeds. That's a horrible experience. And yeah, so Sesame is it's kind of like the best thing to happen to sliced bread. It really um, there was something interesting and social about cleaning your weed on a album cover, or even better, a frisbee. That was my go-to. But so there was a weird social thing that went down while you and your friends sat around cross-legged cleaning buds, to get all the seeds out and break it down. And uh, I miss that sometimes. I don't know. I'd probably get over it real fast if I had to do it. Let's see here. Um, let's see. Southview, Port Townsend. What's up, Manton? Um, in the neighborhood. Silent Truth said they'll have to try the principal. Riptide, whisper those sweet nothing to me, Brandon. Always love the knowledge drop. Good to see you here, bro. Thank you, bro. Um, and I'd like to say this. I'm often wrong. I just gave myself root aphids. So, if you ever disagree with me, I certainly don't think you're wrong. Um, I'm always down to learn something, and I appreciate everybody in here is always super civil and really kind, and but if you ever think that we're down wrong about something, let us know, because we like the conversation. Um, let's see here. Can you use a TDS, Monty Zoomer? Can you use a TDS meter on organic newts? I saw a video and he was using a TDS on BioBiz. Um, you can use an TDS meter in organics. It's not going to read accurately. It's not going to read the same way that, I should say, that it would with a salt solution. But you can use an EC number. You just kind of have to figure out what number it is that works for you. Um, Kind of like having a pH meter that's off. As long as you figure out what range your plant's like, it doesn't really matter what the number is. Um, but so, we have some basic TDS averages, but it's not the most precise number like it is with salts. Um, Gilbert says plants in jars is dope. Yes, awesome. Uh, Tito Love, heading into the last 2 weeks of flower, I will drop the temperature to 72. Is there a benefit to reducing PPFD as well? I was thinking light stress could be good if I'm able to control the temperature. Ben, thoughts on dropping light in the
At the
last?
end.
Yeah,
Yeah, again, something of a similar, you're trying to signal to your plant that the sun's setting, right? And similar with getting, um, irrigation a little bit backed off, is you're basically wanting your plant to realize that it's close to end of life. If it doesn't have enough water, it's not going to feel so great. If it doesn't have access to the same PPFD, it's not going to feel so great. So again, what are we trying to tell the plant to do? Push every little resource you have left where? To the next generation, which is your flower, right? So it's just more environmental, abiotic signaling that you're trying to communicate to your plant. We got to wrap it up here, so let's do that. And light and water and temperature are often the best ways to kind of speak their language, to let them know to start, or I should say rather, to finish pumping what they have left into those flowers before next generation's turn.
yeah, I definitely dropped my temperature. Um,
Yeah, help with
so
senescence.
it's been an hour. I'm down to kind of try to jam through these. There's a bunch of questions. We could just kind of, I'm down to stick around and kind of run through them. Do you have a few more minutes or?
I do. I'm not sure if Tad's gonna shut her down early before that though.
Yeah, if yeah, so Tad's kind of has to do this for the folks that are in the chat. Tad has to do these meetings for us, and then we jump into them. So if we disappear, we appreciate you being here, but I'll continue.